folks, this isn't a dream. This isn't a fantasy. You're not in the Twilight Zone. You're not in Narnia. This isn't the Secret Garden. This isn't the place from Lord of the Rings or the Matrix. This is the real world. And in the real world, Fox News has joined the mainstream media in falsely declaring Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. So before we do anything else, I want to do something that's symbolic and important, probably to a lot of us. So I'm going to light a candle and in memorial, pretty much, of Fox News as a conservative, Republican, right-wing, anything media outlet. Now, folks, Fox News has joined the rest of them. If they weren't on that path already, I'm sorry, Tucker Carlson, that you have to work there. But when this comes out in the courts and Trump is declared the president, Fox News is going to lose every Republican voter, or every Republican viewer, that they have. So they just signed their death warrant. Anyway, let's go through this a little, because you're sitting here and you're watching this. You're watching this fake news company, Fox News, say Biden projected to defeat Trump, become 46th president, and he's set to address the nation tonight. Oh, the great unifier. Now, let me put this out there. Nowhere in the Constitution does it states that the media gets to pick the next president. Biden, the left, all of these people are pretending that he won, but we're still having litigations in court. There's nowhere, there's nothing, there's no stone tablet, no alien transmission, no data tape. There's nothing that says that Fox News gets to pick who the next president is. So I implore you, please hang on tight. This is about to get bumpy, very, very bumpy. And all of these people that are apparently dancing in the streets up here, cheering for the next elected president that they claim to be, Joe Biden, their heads are going to explode when Trump is declared. This can go many different ways. It can go up to the Supreme Court. It can get voted through in Congress. But either way, Trump wins. None of you have been paying attention to the Constitution, and the Democrats and the left for months and months and months have been trying to get you to forget or just not even learn what the Constitution says and what this country's all about and how presidents are elected. You see, during this COVID crap, our electoral system was basically destroyed. It was rooted. It was infected with its own form of virus, its own democratic fraud machine. If you look at the Epoch Times right here, this is what it actually looks like right now. This is where we actually stand. We have Nevada, we have Arizona, we have Alaska going, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and just because the media has called it in these areas doesn't mean that it's over. As Rocky says, it ain't over till it's over. So look, folks, Wisconsin, Michigan, rampant claims of voter fraud. Pennsylvania, rampant claims of voter fraud. Georgia, same thing. Nevada, Arizona, same thing. They aren't even done counting in those places yet. But I'm not worried about that because we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of claims of fraud. They've caught people trying to cross into the Canadian border or through the Canadian border with hundreds of votes in their car. They've caught people voting in different states. They're getting ballots in multiple different states because of the millions of people that moved due to COVID-19. So you have people moving from California to Texas and voting in both California and Texas. And then you have software that's incorrectly giving Biden thousands of votes. And in some of these places, thousands of votes matter. So I want to read this for a second. Software that incorrectly gave Biden thousands of Michigan votes used in 28 other states. That's right. It's coming out now that this software, that it was like 6,000 or 7,000 votes in Michigan in just one county, is used in multiple counties there and in 28 other states. that needs to be investigated, and it will be investigated. So for Fox to be sitting here partying in the streets with the left, you know, folks, when the dragon reveals its belly, do you hesitate or do you shove a rapier in it? This is going to be the downfall of Fox News. I can guarantee that. I want to read this for a little bit. Election software that incorrectly awarded thousands of votes to Joe Biden in Michigan is used in a majority of U.S. states, including statewide in Georgia, where it has reportedly been implicated in several voting-related glitches there. The Michigan Secretary of State confirmed on Friday that a software error in Antrim County, Michigan, in which Joe Biden was incorrectly awarded thousands of votes that led him to be declared the county winner, was caused by an error in which the county clerk did not update the software used to collect voting machine data and report unofficial results. The software is administered by the company Dominion Voting Systems. Now, folks, how many times do you ignore your phone when it needs to be updated? Or when you have that little notification in the lower part of your screen, like right there, that says you have to update Windows? How often does that happen? Sometimes it automatically happens. Either way, we don't pay attention. How many times have you been at work and the computer software your company uses doesn't work right? You think that this doesn't happen across the country, that we have a flawless voting system? And in the meantime, Joe Biden sitting here, is sitting here saying that the claims are baseless. You know, look, Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani says Trump won't concede, revives baseless claims of voter fraud. It's not just these news organizations like USA Today saying it's baseless. It's been the entire Democrat Party. The Democrat Party in unison has been going around for months saying these claims are baseless. They're trying to set everything up so that when Trump wins, half the country thinks he cheated. And they're the ones that are actually being lied to. We know what's happening. We know the truth. But they're brainwashed. And this is going to spark mass unrest. And it's all going to be for the benefit of big business, big tech, the mainstream media, and of course, corrupt politicians. Of course. Look, I want to take us through a history of contested presidential elections in this country. The left right now is saying that this stuff isn't happening. They're saying that the voter fraud's not happening, that there's no history of voter fraud. They're saying that presidential elections are just not contested, that it's just something that might have happened in 2000 and it was a fluke. But this goes way further back than most people realize, and I think it's time you know the truth. A history of contested presidential elections from Samuel Tilden to Al Gore. Now, this is written by Robert Spiel, and he's an associate professor of political science at Erie campus in Penn State. Okay, this isn't written by Joe Blow down in the basement. It's not written by somebody at the Quickie Mart. Nope, this is written by an actual professor, an intellectual, somebody who studies this stuff, and it's actual history. So I want to take a look here and read for a second. As states continue to count their ballots in the 2020 election, it seems possible that Democrats and Republicans will end up in court, and they will end up in court, over whether President Trump will win a second term in the White House. President Trump has said he's going to contest the election results, going so far as to say that he believes the election will ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden has a team of lawyers lined up for the legal battle. So while President Trump is fighting this, Biden's gone and hired all these people. And we know this is happening. And while Biden's declared this false victory with the media, social media, and everything behind it, and, you know, bear with me. Let me go to President Trump's Twitter for 2 seconds. I want to show you something, guys. Just while we brought that up. When you look at President Trump's Twitter, you can see how the social media big tech gods have interfered in this. Look at this. Censored. You can't read his posts. That's censored right there. That's censored. Let's keep going down. He's got a little bit, just retweets. Censored. That was Dan Bongino being censored, excuse me. There's Trump censored. There's Trump censored. There's Trump censored. There's Trump censored, censored, censored. Who the hell are they? Who the hell do they think they are? How do you censor the President of the United States? So, folks, when you hear people talking about a coup, that's what a coup looks like. Silence the top and take on over. We aren't in good times right now, but we're fighting the righteous fight. We're fighting the righteous fight, and we are winning. They just don't want you to think that. It's part of their strategy. Let's keep reading about this. The elections of 1876, 1888, 1960, and 2000 were among the most contentious in American history. In each case, the losing candidate and party dealt with the disputed results differently. So 1876, a compromise that came with a price. At 1876, or by 1876, 11 years after the end of the Civil War, all the Confederate states had been readmitted to the Union, and Reconstruction was in full swing. The Republicans were strongest in the pro-Union areas of the North and the African-American regions of the South. Do you hear me, Black Lives Matter? While Democratic support coalesced around Southern whites and Northern areas that had been less supported of the Civil War. All right. So the Democrats were the ones aligned with the slaveholders, the former slaveholders, and the Republicans were the ones supported by, made up by pro-Black Americans and, of course, Black Americans. All right. That year, Republicans nominated Ohio Governor Rutherford B. Hayes, and Democrats chose New York Governor Samuel Tilden. But on Election Day, there was widespread voter intimidation against African-American Republican voters throughout the South. That's right, the Democrats were bullying African-American Republican voters. 3 of those southern states, Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina, had Republican-dominated election boards, and in those 3 states, some initial results seemed to indicate Tilden victories, but due to widespread allegations of intimidation and fraud, the election boards invalidated enough votes to give the states and their electoral votes to Hayes. What do you think Trump is going to do right now in the Supreme Court? Why do you think Samuel Alito has sequestered and told to put aside all votes in Pennsylvania received after 8 p.m. on Election Day, With the electoral votes from all 3 states, Hayes would win a 185 to 184 majority in the Electoral College at the time. Competing sets of election returns and electoral votes were sent to Congress to be counted in January 1877, so Congress voted to create a bipartisan commission of 15 members of Congress and Supreme Court justices to determine how to allocate the electors from the 3 disputed states. 7 commissioners were to be Republican, 7 were to be Democrats, and there would be 1 independent, Justice David Davis of Illinois. In a political scheme that backfired, Davis was chosen by Democrats in the Illinois state legislature to serve in the U.S. Senate. You have to understand, at the time, senators weren't voted for, they were appointed. They'd hoped to win his support on the Electoral Commission, but instead, Davis resigned from the commission and was replaced by Republican Justice Joseph Bradley, who proceeded to join a Republican 8-7 majority that awarded all the disputed electoral votes to Hayes. So this election isn't over. There's one example right there through Democrat cheating and bullying and through the constitutional process of a Republican winning. Let's go down a little bit. In 1888, bribing blocks of 5. Now, this is coming from the other side here. In 1888, Democratic President Grover Cleveland of New York ran for re-election against former Indiana U.S. Senator Benjamin Harrison. Back then, election ballots in most states, they were printed, distributed by political parties, and cast publicly so everybody could see. Certain voters, known as floaters, were known to sell their votes to willing buyers. Harrison had appointed an Indiana lawyer, William Wade Dudley, as treasurer of the Republican National Committee. Shortly before the election, Dudley sent a letter to Republican local leaders in Indiana with promised funds and instructions for how to divide receptive voters into blocks of 5 to receive bribes in exchange for voting the Republican ticket. Democrats got a copy of the letter and publicized it widely in the days leading up to the election. Harrison, though, ended up winning Indiana by only 2,000 votes, but still would have won Electoral College without the state. Cleveland actually won the national popular vote by almost 100,000 votes, but he lost his home state, New York, by about 1%, putting Harrison over the top in the Electoral College. Cleveland's loss in New York may have also been related to vote-buying schemes. So when you hear the left talk about nothing founded, no history of fraud, our elections are perfectly fine, perfectly good, perfectly safe, that's a talking point. That's a lie. This is history. This has happened before. But now we have big technology companies that have a power and a technology that just wasn't in existence before. This is unprecedented because the technology wasn't in existence before. So how can the left claim that something isn't happening when it's never happened before because we didn't have the damn technology? That's what you have to understand. They're trying to just brush this crap under the rug. The Democrats, if you didn't notice by the voting, by the way that people voted, the Democrats have realigned themselves. They are aligned as they've always been, but now in public, they are aligned with big tech. They are aligned with Wall Street. They are aligned with the cheaters, the liars. They are aligned with their own self-interest, with the warmongers. They aren't aligned with working class people. The Republicans are. They aren't aligned with African American voters. The Republicans are. They aren't aligned with historic amounts of Hispanic voters. The Republicans are. The working class party is now the Republican Party in public. Let's keep reading this, guys. And also, really quick, here's a pattern. Cleveland did not contest the Electoral College outcome, and that's what the Democrats are hoping for, and that's what they keep pointing to throughout history. They want us to just go with it. Just go with it. It'll be okay. Just go with it. But the problem is we have found this horrible rat's nest, this swamp, this disgusting chasm, this disgusting bog of corruption, of pedophilia, of nasty, dishonorable lies and treachery and lining of pockets and international corruption, and it has to be destroyed. We can't just ignore it. We can't just concede to it. We can't. They might have, but maybe they didn't know stuff was going on back in the day. But now we know, and we can't just turn a blind eye. We can't just turn a blind eye. Look at this. 1960, did the Daily Machine deliver? The 1960 election pitted Republican Vice President Richard Nixon against Democratic U.S. Senator John F. Kennedy. The popular vote was the closest of the 20th century, with Kennedy defeating Nixon by only about 100,000 votes, a less than 0.2% difference. Because of that national spread, and because Kennedy officially defeated Nixon by less than 1% in 5 states, Hawaii, Illinois, Missouri, New Jersey, New Mexico, and less than 2% of Texas, many Republicans cried foul. They fixated on 2 places in particular, southern Texas and Chicago, where a political machine led by Mayor Richard Daley allegedly churned out just enough votes to give Kennedy the state of Illinois. If Nixon had won Texas and Illinois, he would have had an Electoral College majority. And while Republican-leaning newspapers proceeded to investigate and conclude that a lot of voter fraud had occurred, Nixon didn't contest the results. He just came back later, ran for president, won, and the rest is history. But folks, again, like I said before, we have to contest. We can't just sit on our heels. Trump isn't a politician. He's an outsider. He's a populist president. He's an American president. He's our president. And he will fight for us till the bitter end, and he's going to win. And when he wins, everything's going to fall apart for the left. It's all going to fall apart for the left. Look, We can go to the famous Gore v. Bush that they always talk about. 2000, the hanging chads. In 2000, many states were still using the punch card ballot, a voting system created in the 1960s. And even though these ballots had a long history of machine malfunctions and missed votes, no one seemed to know or care until all Americans suddenly realized that the outdated technology had created a problem in Florida. Then, on Election Day, the national media discovered that a butterfly ballot, a punch card ballot with a design that violated Florida state law, had confused thousands of voters in Palm Beach County. Many who had thought they were voting for Gore unknowingly voted for another candidate or voted for two candidates. For example, Reform Party candidate Pat Buchanan received about 3,000 votes from voters who had probably intended to vote for Gore. Gore ended up losing the state to Bush by 537 votes. And in losing Florida, he lost the election. So ultimately, the month-long process to determine the winner of presidential elections had came down to an issue of hanging chads. So over 60,000 ballots in Florida, most of them on punch cards, had registered no vote for president on the punch card readers themselves. But on many of the punch cards, the little pieces of paper that get punched, like from a hole puncher, those that fall out, when someone votes, they're known as chads, they were hanging by 1 or 2 or 3 corners and had gone uncounted. And Gore went to court to have those ballots counted by hand and tried to determine the intent of the voter. And that's why Gore lost, because a vote is a vote is a vote. Once it's in there, if it's disqualified, it's disqualified. You can't guess the intent of somebody. You can't guess an election. And that's just what Joe Biden's doing. He's guessing an election. That's just what the mainstream media is doing. They're guessing an election, and they're pretending to be victorious so that when Trump wins, they have 4 more years of material in the mainstream media of calling him a cheater and a liar. And they've convinced half of this country of that. We can't let that stand. We can't let that happen. We can't let the mainstream media blindly profit off of this. We can't. So, if you are appreciative of the information that I brought you today, if you're thankful for it, I would appreciate in return if you could do me a favor. If you could go right now and just subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, that's super important. It really helps me out. And hit the notification bell. Go to the description section, check out my social media links. I'm all over, but especially on Parler. Parler is going to be our last bastion in big tech world. So go to Parler, download Parler. It's a fantastic app, and look me up. My name on there is @TheJamesLane, @TheJamesLane. You can also go to my website, www.americanreveille.com. That's REVEILLE.com. And if you really, really love what we're doing, you can go to the upper right corner there on my website, hit the donate button, and give us whatever you'd like. We could really use the help. This is a big fight for all of us on the right here. And all of that money goes to upgrading of equipment, helping get research, paying people that do research for us, all of that stuff so that we can expand this and get the word out and keep that conservative base growing, that Republican base growing, that new, diverse, beautiful Republican Party growing into a force to be reckoned with. And as you'll see coming up pretty soon, it's going to be downhill for the left. And they're going to see that we're a force to be reckoned with. They're going to see that they were wrong and we were right. It's them. They're the corrupt ones. I don't know if you've ever seen anything on or been in a situation with where a spouse was cheating, where they go and do something like sleep with the neighbor and then accuse you of sleeping with the neighbor. That's what the Democrats have done this whole time. Everything they're doing, everything they're actually doing, they're accusing us of. And then they're just hoping we don't actually notice. It's a last-ditch effort. It's a last-ditch effort for survival. And you'll see in the long run that we're going to prevail, that we're going to be fine. So rest easy on that. I want you to be confident. I want you to be tough. I don't want you to be emotional. I don't want you to be in conflicts. I want you to trust that we are handling this. And regardless of what happens, we are Americans, we are patriots, and we will prevail. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.